Did you know that there's different types of cardio? And if you have PCOS, the type of cardio you do can affect the type of results that you see. But here's the important thing. There's no bad cardio. Hello, my name is John Gibson. I'm a PCOS body transformation expert, and I have been working with women with PCOS for almost 20 years. And I want to be able to help you see the results that you want to see. Now, before we move on, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment down below, share the video, whatever you need to do to make sure that this spreads. Now, cardio. You've probably heard that it's either good or bad. And depending on where you've gone, depending on who you've talked to, they may have said things like, oh, it's going to raise your cortisol, it's going to slow down your fat loss, or maybe even it will make your fat loss better. And the reality is all of those things are true. Here's the problem in the fitness industry, in the weight loss industry, in the nutrition, in all the industries that are trying to help you out, is that people tend to latch onto one idea, and then they preach that idea as if it is the truth about everything. See, here's the reality. Cardio can cause your cortisol to go too high if you are doing it wrong. If you are doing it in excess, if you are doing it every single day, all the time, and too much of it. Along with that, cardio can produce a lot of fat loss if you're doing the right amount that you need to do. You see, only doing one type of exercise and sticking to just that one type of exercise is the wrong way to do things. And I've done another video where I explained how to actually put together a workout program, when you should exercise, how to mix and match the different types of exercises in the right way. And because PCOS makes it so difficult for someone to see the results they're hoping for, you want to make sure that you're doing things the right way for you and your body. Now, in today's video, we're going to talk about cardio and the different types of cardio and how you can implement each one in your program and when you probably should avoid each one. Now, if you're not exercising, exercise is a huge, important part of your progress. Now, here's why. One thing that I talk about a lot with my clients and different people that I talk to about PCOS is a hormone called adiponectin. Now, a lot of times people don't talk about that. I never hear anyone talk about adiponectin related to PCOS. But here's the interesting thing. Adiponectin is related to insulin resistance, high inflammation, and difficulty losing fat. Sound familiar? Isn't that basically three of the symptoms that everyone sees with PCOS is high amounts of inflammation, insulin resistance tends to be a big problem, and there's a difficulty losing fat. But when adiponectin levels are high, inflammation tends to be low, insulin resistance tends not to be a problem, and someone tends to lose fat much easier. But how do we increase adiponectin levels? The only way that I've seen in the research is through exercise. And so if you're not exercising, then you need to make sure that you add that as part of your plan. But a lot of times I'll get someone who will say, but John, I've already exercised, I've tried that before, it didn't work for me. Well, the reality is this, it's only part of the recipe. That's no different than someone saying, John, I tried to make this cake and I put flour in it and that was it. Just put flour in the pan and threw it in the oven. It wasn't a good cake, so flour is not going to work for me. I have to have a different cake recipe that doesn't have flour. Well, did you put all the other ingredients in? Well, no. No duh, you didn't get a good cake, right? Same type of thing happens with your results, is if you're just exercising and you're not taking care of the other things that need to happen, you're not going to see progress. So that's why exercise must be a part of your plan. So let's get into cardio and the different types of cardio. Now, the first type of cardio I want to talk about is what we call steady state cardio. And that's the typical cardio that people like to think about, is you just are doing a steady, continuous type of exercise. You're running on a treadmill, you're riding a bike, you're going at a steady pace for a extended period of time. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, however long you tend to go on that. That is your typical steady state cardio. Now, there are benefits and there are drawbacks to that. Now, if you're just doing steady state cardio, that's all you're doing, you're missing out on all the other benefits or the other parts of the recipe that we need to be able to help you see the results you want to see. Usually when I'm putting together a workout program, and again, there's another video that talks about all the different steps of that, but usually when I'm putting together an exercise program for someone, what I will do is I will make sure that we have weights or some sort of strength training in there because of the benefits that come from that, plus typically the next type of cardio that we'll get into in a minute. And then lastly is the steady state cardio. I'll add that in where it needs to be. It might only be once a week, it might be twice a week, it might be as much as 4 times a week, depending on the person and their goals and their sleep and their nutrition, and there's so many things that go into it. But if you hear anyone say that doing steady state cardio is bad for someone with PCOS, they have no idea what they're talking about. Excessively, yes. In the right amount, it's wonderful for PCOS. Because what does steady state cardio do? Well, one thing that it does is after you've done it for about 20 minutes or so, it'll actually put you into a fat burning state during the remaining part of that workout. Now, one drawback to it is afterwards, once you stop the exercise, you kind of get out of that fat burning state fairly quickly after the workout. If you want to maintain a fat burning state afterwards, then the next type of exercise will be important. But it's great at burning fat during the workout. And so what that means is if you were to put cardio after you lifted weights or did some sort of strength program or after you did some sort of interval type of a program or something like that, then it would be great because your body is already kind of getting into that fat burning state because of these other type of exercises, because of what they do to your hormones, because of what they do to fat breakdown. And then you start doing cardio, some sort of steady state cardio afterwards, you'd actually start burning more fat with that workout. It would benefit that workout. So how would you do that? Well, I would just say, add maybe 10 minutes of cardio at the end of your workout if you want to do something like that. You could take it as long as you feel comfortable doing and that your body can actually handle. As long as you're getting enough rest after the workout, as long as you're eating well, then you can exercise for a fair amount of time. The problem with exercise is not typically the exercise by itself. It's not that people are doing excessive amounts of exercise. It's that we're not taking care of the other things. Let me share a study with you really quick that kind of illustrates this idea. So years ago, they did this study where they took women who were exercising about 6 hours a day. I think they were gymnasts. And what happened with them is all of them had lost their menstrual cycles. They were all extremely skinny. There's something called the female triad that they were experiencing, which is basically osteoporosis can develop from that. It's the loss of menstrual cycle, it's extreme weight loss and things like that, to the point where it could be very, very unhealthy for them. Now, what did they do with these people? Everyone was looking at them and saying, oh, you're exercising too much. We need to cut down the amount of exercise. Well, the researchers came in, split them into two groups like they typically do. One group, they cut down the amount of exercise. The other group, they fed them more food. Now, what happened when they did this? Well, the group that they cut down the amount of exercise, not much changed. The group that they gave more food actually got healthier. They got their menstrual cycle back. They started feeling better. They were able to perform better with the exercises. And the important thing, and everyone's worried about, and that's why everyone talks about, I've got to cut my calories down further and further and further, they did not gain more fat. So with exercise, an important thing is to make sure you're getting enough food, you're getting enough rest, you're taking care of yourself and not just going and beating yourself up in the gym. So a steady state, add that as part of your workout, but for me, it'd probably be the lowest and the least important that I would add in. If you didn't have enough time, I would do other forms of exercises first, but it could be something good to do at the end of your workout. Now, what's the other type of cardio? Well, I'm probably gonna get some pushback on this because people don't think of this as cardio, even though it is cardio, which is high intensity interval training. HIIT. HIIT is a form of cardio. So why do we call it cardio, or why do I call it cardio? And I feel like I'm gonna get some pushback on this, is because of what it does to your cardiovascular system. That's where the term cardio comes from, is how it affects your cardiovascular system. And intervals, here's what we find with this, is a short interval, let's say a 20-minute interval, can have the same benefit for your body as doing an hour to maybe even 90 minutes of steady state cardio. And so there's a lot more benefit doing the shorter, more intense, high intense interval training for your body, at least in that short period of time, than doing steady state cardio. And that's why I would have someone do this first before I would have them go to longer forms of exercise. But again, I hear people say this all the time, but won't interval raise my cortisol too much? I've got cortisol issues and it's going to cause it to go too high and all these things. There's an interesting study that actually showed that when people do intervals the right way, which I'll explain in a second, when they do intervals, it does spike cortisol in the short term. We call it acute spikes in cortisol. But in the long term, it actually lowers cortisol. Why is it? Why does it do that? Well, what happens is when we spike our cortisol for a short period of time, whether that is through exercise, whether that is through fasting, or different things like that, we can spike our cortisol a little bit. And that spike tells our body to start adapting. Oh, hey, we just had a lot of cortisol. We need to adapt to that. And what it does is it gets better at handling the amount of cortisol that our body needs. And so in the long term, over several weeks and months, it actually can lower our overall cortisol. So if somebody has high amounts of cortisol, one thing to do is add in some sort of exercise that causes little spikes in the cortisol so that in the long term, we can see that drop. But how do we make sure that it doesn't cause problems long term? Well, again, it comes down to how we're doing it. If you're not eating well, if you're not sleeping, if you're not taking care of your body, not getting enough hydration, all those things, and then you throw intervals on there, and you do intervals every single day, and for an hour to an hour and a half at a time, yeah, that's going to cause issues to your cortisol levels. But what if you did intervals twice a week? What if you made sure that you got enough rest in between each of your intervals, meaning a day to 2 days to 3 days between each interval session? And what if your interval sessions were shorter, 20 minutes, maybe 25, and then you really took care of yourself? Then you would see good results. You wouldn't have the spikes in cortisol that most people have or that most people complain about, and you would see the results you want. So again, when I hear people complain about different types of exercises and say you should only do this exercise or that exercise, or you should not spike this or spike that, or this causes problems, that causes problems, they're always focused on the extremes of these types of exercises. They're not looking at how do we put them all together. Because a real good program is not a workout. A real good program is when someone looks at several workouts in a row, several weeks in a row, several months in a row. And we're looking at all the different exercises and the different workouts that you'll be doing. So what are you going to be doing Monday through Friday during 1 week? And how do each of those workouts play together? And again, there's another video you can go watch that gets into more detail on those things. So in terms of these two types of exercises, interval training or HIIT training and doing your steady state cardio, how would I put those together? Well, again, what I would have someone do is 1 to 2, maybe 3 days a week of intervals. That is the most. I would never have anyone do 4 days a week. I would never have anyone do any more than that. 5 or 6, no way. Okay. But 1 to 2, maybe 3 days a week is not a problem. Now, in terms of steady state cardio, we have to look at everything else you're doing. How are you lifting? How are you doing intervals? How are you sleeping? How are you exercising? Once we look at all the other aspects of your workout program, then we can decide, is adding extra steady state cardio a good thing? Now, another thing to look at is this. What if you are brand new to exercise? What if you have just come in, you haven't really worked out a whole lot, you're out of shape, maybe you haven't worked out in years? What do you do? Well, I would probably have someone start with steady state cardio or lifting weights, which is outside the realm of this video here. But I would probably have someone maybe start with steady state cardio, but just start out with something small. It could be 5 minutes a day. That's better than sitting on a couch. Start out with 5 minutes a day, going for a walk. Then as time goes on, you can try to walk faster or run faster. You can try to go a little bit longer. Once you get to the point where you can easily do this for, let's say, 30 minutes at a time, then we can start looking at doing intervals and adding intervals in there, having someone sprint within that walk, maybe just 1 sprint during the workout. Then eventually do 2 sprints, then 3, then 4. Then we get to the point where you're doing a sprint every minute or so. It really depends on your needs, how your body responds, the types of results. So there's a lot that obviously goes into it. So again, one thing to really remember is that doing the right types of exercises is an individual thing. There is no blanket statement that everyone should do the exact same type of exercise. It's finding what's going to work for you, and that can take testing, it can take trial and error. But making sure that you're adding in some form of cardio to your workout program and making sure that you're not being excessive with it is going to be important for you to see the success you want to see. Now, if this video was helpful for you, please like and share this video or comment down below. Comments tend to help this spread even more than anything else. So go ahead and let me know what questions you have, and I'll be more than happy to answer those.